There is a moment in every life when silence from heaven feels heavier than thunder. A moment when prayers seem to rise but never return, when doors close without explanation, when everything you thought was stable begins to shake. And in that moment, a question forms in the deepest part of your soul. God, are you angry with me? Do not skip this moment. Do not run from it. Because what feels like anger is often something far more sacred, far more intentional, and far more transformative than you realize. There's a calling that few understand. It is not the calling of comfort, nor the calling of applause. It is the calling of refinement. And those who are chosen for it often misinterpret the fire as rejection, when in truth, it is preparation. You see, when God begins to deal with you differently, it is not because he has abandoned you. It is because he is drawing you closer than ever before. But closeness to God does not always feel like warmth. Sometimes it feels like exposure, like everything hidden is being brought into light, like every excuse is being stripped away, like every distraction is being removed. And yes, it can feel like anger. But listen carefully, God's anger is not like human anger. It is not reckless, it is not cruel, and is not driven by ego. It is holy, it is precise, it is purposeful. When God is angry, it is often his way of confronting the version of you that is standing in the way of your true calling. Because you cannot carry divine purpose while holding on to things that are beneath it. So he begins to remove. He begins to disrupt. He begins to shake the very foundations of your life. Not to destroy you, but to awaken you. And this is where many people walk away. They misinterpret the process. They say, God is punishing me, when in reality, God is positioning them. They say, God has turned his back on me, when in reality, God is turning them toward their destiny. But few understand this calling. Few have the courage to stay when it gets uncomfortable. Few have the faith to trust when nothing makes sense. Few are willing to look within and say, maybe this is not happening to me, but for me. Because this calling demands something rare, it demands surrender. Not partial surrender, not convenient surrender. Total surrender. It demands that you let go of control, that you release your timelines, your expectations, your need to understand everything. It demands that you trust God even when his actions confuse you. And that is not easy, because the human heart craves certainty. It craves clarity. It craves reassurance. But God does not always give you explanations. He gives you transformation. And transformation is painful. It feels like loss. It feels like isolation. It feels like everything you once relied on is being taken away. But what you don't see is what God is building in its place. Strength you didn't know you had. Faith that cannot be shaken. Clarity that cuts through confusion. A deeper connection with him that cannot be replaced by anything else. This is the calling few understand. It is the calling to be set apart. And being set apart means you will walk paths that others cannot relate to. It means you will face battles that others cannot see. It means you will endure seasons that others would not survive. But it also means you will experience God in ways that others never will. So if you feel like God is angry at you, pause. Look deeper. Ask yourself, what is he trying to remove? What is he trying to reveal? What is he trying to build within me? Because sometimes what feels like divine frustration is actually divine focus. God is not trying to break you. He's trying to break what is breaking you. He is not trying to harm you. He is trying to heal you. He is not rejecting you. He is refining you. And refinement requires fire. Gold is not purified in comfort. It is purified in heat. It is the fire that removes the impurities. It is the pressure that reveals the true value. And you, right now, may be in that fire. But do not skip this moment. Do not run from the discomfort. Do not silence the conviction. Because this is where the shift happens. This is where the old version of you begins to fall away, and a new version, stronger, wiser, more aligned with God's purpose, begins to emerge. And yes, it will cost you something. It will cost you your pride, your comfort, your old habits, your old ways of thinking, maybe even certain relationships. But what you gain will be far greater. You will gain clarity. You will gain purpose. You will gain a relationship with God that is not based on convenience, but on commitment. And that kind of relationship changes everything. So if you feel like God is angry at you, do not turn away. Lean in, because this may not be anger at all. This may be the beginning of your calling. There are seasons in life when everything grows quiet in a way that feels almost unsettling, like the world is still, but your spirit is restless. You pray, but the words feel like they're falling back onto you instead of reaching heaven. You wait, but nothing changes. You listen, but there is no response. In that silence, a heavy thought begins to take shape, one that whispers into your mind again and again. Maybe God is angry with you. Maybe you have done something wrong. Maybe you have gone too far, drifted too much, failed too many times. The silence starts to feel personal, like a distance that wasn't there before, like a door that used to be open is now closed. This kind of silence is different from ordinary waiting. It feels deeper, sharper, more intense. It touches your emotions in a way that makes you question everything you once felt certain about. You begin to replay your past, searching for mistakes, examining your choices, wondering where things shifted. Every delay feels like rejection. Every closed opportunity feels like confirmation that something is not right between you and God. The absence of immediate answers creates a space where doubt tries to grow, where fear tries to settle, where your faith is quietly tested without warning. But what makes this moment so powerful is not the silence itself, but what it reveals inside you. When everything external becomes still, your internal world becomes louder. Your thoughts, your insecurities, your hidden fears rise to the surface. You start to see parts of yourself you may have ignored before. Your need for control, your dependence on outcomes, your desire for constant reassurance. The silence begins to uncover things that noise once concealed. It strips away distractions and leaves you face to face with your true spiritual condition. There is a weight in feeling like God is distant, because connection with Him is not just a belief, it is a lifeline. When that connection feels interrupted, it can feel like something essential is missing. You may continue your daily routine, but internally there is a sense of emptiness, a quiet ache that does not go away. You might try to fill that space with activity, with distractions, with temporary comforts, but nothing fully replaces the sense of peace that comes from feeling close to God. In this space, patience becomes difficult. Trust becomes harder. You want clarity, you want direction, you want to know that you're still seen, still heard, still held. But instead, you are left with stillness. And that stillness can feel like judgment if you don't understand its purpose. It can feel like you are being ignored, when in reality, something much deeper is taking place beneath the surface. Because silence has a way of slowing you down enough to notice what truly matters. It removes the noise that often keeps you distracted from your own spiritual growth. It creates a moment where you're no longer moving forward on autopilot, but are instead being invited to reflect, to realign, to become aware. It presses you to seek God, not just for answers, but for presence. Not just for solutions, but for understanding. What feels like punishment often carries the weight of misunderstanding, because the human heart naturally associates pain with rejection. When circumstances begin to shift in uncomfortable ways, when things are taken away, when doors begin to close without explanation, it is easy to assume that God is displeased, that He is correcting you out of anger rather than shaping you with intention. The experience can feel sharp, almost personal, like something is being stripped from your life without your consent. You may begin to resist it, to question it, to fight against it internally, because it disrupts the version of life you were trying to hold together. But refinement does not come through comfort. It comes through pressure, through heat, through moments that force you out of what is familiar and into what is necessary. There are things within you that cannot be transformed gently, patterns that will not break without tension, attachments that will not release without force. What feels like loss is often the removal of what no longer aligns with where you're being led. What feels like delay is often protection from what you're not ready to carry. What feels like emptiness is often space being created for something more meaningful to take root. This process exposes the difference between what you relied on and what is actually sustaining you. When certain supports are removed, you begin to see how much you depended on them for identity, for security, for validation. It becomes clear how easily those things took the place of deeper trust. The discomfort is not random. It is revealing. It brings to the surface the subtle ways you may have built your life around temporary things instead of eternal truth. It shows you where your focus has been divided, where your priorities have shifted, where your heart has quietly drifted without you realizing it. There's a kind of fire in this experience, not visible but deeply felt. It burns through illusions, through false confidence, through the parts of you that were built on unstable ground. It does not destroy your worth, but it challenges everything that is not rooted in it. You may feel stretched, unsettled, even exhausted by the constant sense of change. Yet within that pressure, something is being reshaped. Your thinking begins to shift. Your desires begin to change. What once satisfied you no longer holds the same power, and what once seemed distant begins to draw your attention. The difficulty lies in staying present through the process. There's a natural urge to escape discomfort, to return to what feels easier, to rebuild what is being taken apart. But refinement requires endurance. It asks you to remain in the tension without rushing to resolve it, to trust that what is being removed has a purpose, even if you cannot fully see it yet. It invites you to let go of the need to control every outcome and instead allow transformation to take place from within. In these moments, your understanding of God begins to deepen beyond surface-level comfort. You start to recognize that His work is not limited to blessing what you already are, but extends to reshaping you into what you are meant to become. The process may feel intense, but it is precise, touching areas that need growth, areas that have been overlooked, areas that hold the potential for something greater once they are refined. There comes a point in this journey where effort alone is no longer enough, where trying harder, thinking more, or planning better does not bring the clarity or relief you're searching for. You realize that control, the thing you once relied on to create stability, is slipping from your hands. The more you try to force outcomes, the more resistance you feel. The more you try to hold everything together, the more fragile it all becomes. This is where the call to surrender begins to rise, not as a gentle suggestion, but as a necessary shift in how you live, how you think, and how you relate to God. Surrender is often misunderstood because it feels like weakness from a human perspective. It feels like giving up, like losing, like admitting that you do not have the answers. But spiritually, surrender is not about defeat. It is about alignment. It is the moment you stop trying to lead your life independently and begin to trust that there is a greater wisdom guiding you, even when you cannot see the full picture. It is choosing to release your grip on how things should happen and allowing space for something beyond your understanding to unfold. This is not easy, especially when your mind keeps searching for certainty. You want timelines, you want explanations, you want reassurance that everything will work out in a way that makes sense to you. But surrender asks you to move forward without those guarantees. It asks you to trust in the unseen, to believe in direction without visible signs, to remain steady even when the path feels unclear. It challenges your need to predict outcomes and instead invites you to focus on obedience, on presence, on staying connected even when emotions fluctuate. There is also a deeper layer to surrender that touches your identity. It requires you to let go of the version of yourself you have been holding on to, the one shaped by past experiences, by expectations, by habits that feel familiar. It asks you to release the need to prove yourself, to control how others perceive you, to maintain an image that no longer reflects who you are becoming. This can feel uncomfortable, even unsettling, because it removes the sense of certainty you once had about who you are. In that space, you begin to encounter a different kind of strength, one that is not based on control, but on trust. You start to notice a quiet resilience forming within you, a steadiness that does not depend on circumstances being perfect. Your focus shifts from trying to fix everything around you to allowing something to change within you. You begin to see that not every problem needs to be solved immediately. Not every question needs an answer right away. There is value in waiting, in listening, in being present without forcing resolution. Surrender also reshapes your relationship with time. You begin to understand that not everything happens according to your schedule, and that delays are not always denials. There is a rhythm to growth that cannot be rushed, a process that unfolds in layers rather than instant results. When you stop resisting that rhythm, you begin to experience a sense of peace that is not dependent on outcomes, but rooted in trust. There's a transformation that takes place in those who remain through the process, something quiet yet undeniable, something that cannot be easily explained to others who have not walked the same path. It does not happen all at once, and it does not always feel dramatic, but over time it becomes clear that you are no longer the same person who first entered the silence, the pressure, the uncertainty. The change begins internally, in the way you think, in the way you respond, in the way you perceive both yourself and your relationship with God. What once shook you no longer has the same power. Situations that would have caused anxiety or confusion begin to feel different, not because life has become easier, but because something within you has grown stronger. There is a steadiness that forms, a kind of inner grounding that does not rely on everything going right. You start to notice that your reactions are no longer driven by fear in the same way. There's more patience, more awareness, more intention behind your choices. You're no longer constantly searching for external validation or immediate answers, because something deeper has taken root. This transformation also changes how you understand faith. It is no longer just something you turn to in moments of need, but something that becomes woven into your daily existence. It moves from being situational to being foundational. Your trust in God begins to extend beyond circumstances, beyond visible results, beyond temporary emotions. You begin to understand that faith is not proven when everything makes sense, but when you continue to believe even when it does not. There's also a clarity that begins to emerge, not necessarily about every detail of your life, but about what truly matters. Distractions that once seemed important begin to lose their hold. You become more aware of where your energy goes, more intentional about what you allow into your life. Your priorities shift in ways that others may not immediately understand. You may find yourself stepping away from environments, habits, or relationships that no longer align with the direction you're being led. This can feel isolating at times, because not everyone will recognize or support the changes taking place within you. Yet within that separation, there's also a deeper sense of connection forming, one that is not dependent on external approval. Your relationship with God becomes more personal, more consistent, more real. It is no longer based solely on feelings or specific moments, but on a continuous awareness of His presence, even in ordinary situations. You begin to see how the earlier stages, the silence, the refinement, the surrender, were all shaping you for this deeper level of understanding. The transformation is not about becoming perfect, but about becoming aligned. It is about shedding what was never meant to define you and stepping into a version of yourself that reflects growth, maturity, and purpose. Others may not fully understand what has changed, because much of it has happened beneath the surface in places that are not visible to the outside world. But you recognize it in the way you carry yourself, in the way you respond to challenges, in the way you remain grounded, even when life feels uncertain.